Welcome, my friends, to the Bob and Brad podcast, produced by Bob and Brad, the two most famous physical therapists on the internet. I happen to be one of them. My name is Bob, and I'm exactly one half of the Bob and Brad team. And today we're having a repeat guest. The first interview went so well that we had to bring him back. It's Brad Walker. All I'm going to say about him is that he is the man when it comes to stretching. He knows everything there is to know about it. He does all the research. He's got a great website, stretchcoach.com. Check it out. And he's written at least a dozen books. We'll mention some of them during the show. Please welcome Brad Walker along with me. Welcome back to the program, Brad Walker. So glad to have you.
Thanks, Bob. It's always a pleasure to talk, and really glad to be able to catch up today.
Yeah, that was a great video. I mean, I shouldn't be complimenting ourselves, but I thought it was a great video last time. So I always find this curious. Like, would you mind telling me what your best-selling book is? Because you've written like 12 of them. Am I correct?
Yeah, about a little over 12. So quite a lot of them are still in print. About 6 or 7 of them are still in print. A couple of them were, utter failures and ended up in the gutter, but that's all part of the process.
Wow. That's amazing. 12 was a lot. That's a glutton for punishment, without a doubt.
Yeah, so look, probably my best-selling book by far is the first book that I wrote back in 1995.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's a sort of a bit of a background story to it. I never had any ambitions of being an author. If you would have spoken to my Year 9 English teacher, she told me I had a head like a sieve and I wouldn't amount to anything. So English was definitely not on the radar as far as a career path for me. But yeah, around that time I was doing a lot of coaching and working with a lot of athletes, and I'd be working with an athlete and I'd say, okay, so let's work on your hamstring flexibility, and I'd try and think of some hamstring stretches to do, and I'd come up with 1 or 2 stretches and my mind would go blank, and I couldn't think of anything, any other hamstring stretches. And of course, as soon as the session was over, I'd think of a dozen stretches that we could have done, but didn't think of at the time. So I thought, well, why don't I just sort of make a list of all these stretches, and I'll do some little stick figures so I can remind myself stretches what. And so I did this. I started compiling all these stretches, and I started putting together some sort of basic information on how to stretch properly and all that sort of stuff. And then I thought, well, why don't I turn it into a book? And so that's where it started. Back in the 1990s, publishing a book was not what it is today.
No, it isn't. Right.
It was an extremely expensive, long and painful process to go through. Just the process of actually getting a book to print was massive.
Right.
There was no such thing as digital photography back then.
Right.
So I remember, we went into a studio and we spent all day taking photos, and at the end of it, we had all this film, like literally, the film you see.
Right. The old Kodak film.
Yeah, exactly. And, the photographer said, okay, well, it's going to be, a week or 2 before I get these photos to you. And I went in, and he had all the film, and he cut all the film up into tiny little bits. And he said, he was explaining to me, to get this onto a computer, I need to scan it with this drum scanner thing and tape these little film bits onto this drum scanner. This drum scanner was huge, big thing, and what had happened is the drum scanner would spin around at, I don't know, 1,000 revolutions per minute or whatever it was. Take about 10 or 15 minutes for the computer to actually scan each one of these film pieces, into a digital format. And the end of that, he handed me this disc. It was called a zip disc or something, and I think
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, it held like 100 meg, like
right.
huge.
Yeah, at the time.
at the time. Yeah. So, and then, I had to take all that to an editor, and they had to put it into a format to send off to the printer. And then the printer had to create these films, and then these metal templates. They actually had like metal templates that they created for the book. And then they'd use these metal templates to actually print the book. So yeah, it took like 2 years to get it done. And at the end of it, I think I had 1,000 copies. I ended up giving away half of them at least, selling the other half, and then using that money to, print some more, and so on it went from there. But actually, I think I've got, excuse me. So this is it. Yeah, this is originally, originally it started out as the stretching handbook.
That still is online.
Yeah, that's still online. So I still sell it today. It's in its 3rd edition. It's had sort of dozens of updates and rewrites and all that sort of stuff. So that's definitely my sort of best-selling product.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to give you my opinion. This is my favorite book, The Anatomy of Stretching. Really well done. I mean, we said it last time, the diagrams are just amazing. I mean, even if you know the muscles and how they are stretched, it really helps. And, you get into a weird position, and sometimes you really don't know what muscles you're stretching. And for the layperson, it's fantastic. And even for the professional, I really like the book. So.
Yeah, that's probably the book I'm most proud of. Again, that was a 2-year project to put that together.
I believe it.
There was a heck of a lot of work that went into that, and as you mentioned, the illustrations there really make it what it is. So it's
and you go into the different types of stretching, and all you need to know about stretching. I mean, you're the guru. So we should mention your website, stretchcoach.com. So you'll find, one thing I found this time is, and I hope you don't mind, I really plan on stealing a bunch of your articles as far as the ideas for a video, and I will always give you credit. So that'll be a benefit to you, but some fantastic articles on there under the blog section kind of, but.
Yeah, I just have like an article archive in there, and, everything I've written over the last 20 something years. I just put in there, and a lot of those articles I wrote sort of 15, 20 years ago, but they've been constantly updated.
Sure.
At the top of every article, it has sort of an original date when it was first published, and then when it's last been updated, and most of them have been updated within the last 6 or 12 months. So I'm constantly on the lookout for new information, new research, that sort of stuff. And whenever I come across something, I like to sort of add it to one of the articles that I've got there, and reference it down the bottom. So
it's a treasure trove. It really is. It's really a great resource for everybody. So let me ask you this: if someone comes up to you and asks you which stretches should they be doing, what is your answer to that person?
Yeah, well, it really is an individual approach. I get that question a lot, and I get.
I figured so.
The other question I get is, can you do a full body stretching routine for me? And they're all they're very legitimate questions. Most people think that there's probably a list of maybe 8 or 10 best stretches that they can do. But unfortunately, that's really not the case. Like most things, that need to get down to the detail and the specifics of what requires. So while I can give some sort of broad examples or broad suggestions on, if you're a runner, these type of stretches are going to be most beneficial. If you're a swimmer, or if you're into some sort of throwing sport or batting sport, these are the sort of types of stretches that you want to be looking for. Apart from that, it really does come down to that individual approach, where we look at the individual, we look at the athlete, We look at, number one, what they want to achieve, or what's important in their sport. Like I said before, if they're involved in some sort of batting sport, then we want to be specific towards that. And then look at them as the individual. Do they have any tight spots, weaknesses? Do they have any imbalances and so forth that we need to look at? And so we can just sort of even them out a little bit, get rid of those imbalances and tight spots, and then we can start working towards their goals and what they want to achieve.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to mention this later, but you had an article on stretchcoach.com at 16, no, I'm sorry, that's the other one. See, stretching exercises for specific sports, and you have like 44 sports listed. So
yeah. So between those 44 sports, I think most people can find a sport that they're either
that's close
involved in or
right.
pretty close to what they're already doing. Although I got caught out the other day, I did a podcast for pickleball. And,
oh yes.
Yeah, so I don't have an article on pickleball, but maybe I'll add it to the list later.
Hugely popular over here. Oh my God. I haven't laid my, yeah. So if someone, they're saying, okay, it's supposed to be individual. How can they tell which muscles need to be stretched? I mean, are there tenderness in those muscles, if they push on them, or is it just tightness? Or
the short answer, without having to go to someone and get assessed and all that sort of stuff, the short answer is just, where do you feel tight?
Gotcha.
If you do a stretch, do you feel tight in that stretch?
Gotcha.
If you get into the stretch position and you're really not feeling it that much, you don't feel much restriction, you don't feel really tight in that area, it's probably an indication that you don't really need to work on that area. So maybe have a look at some other areas in your body. If you have been feeling tight or stiff or sore in any particular areas, that's always a good sort of first step to finding out those areas that you need to work on.
Yeah, because we're all busy people, so why stretch something that doesn't need to be stretched, obviously. So now you kind of mentioned asymmetrical tightness in the body, pretty common, and can really throw off the body, these imbalances. What are some common causes of that, and how common is it to you?
Look, it's extremely common. It's very rare that I find someone who doesn't have some sort of imbalance. And that can be an imbalance from one side of the body to the other. So their right side of the body might be a little tighter than the other side. Or it could be an imbalance between the front of their body and the back of their body.
Sure. Some
people have quite good flexibility throughout the front of the body, but the back of the body is extremely tight and stiff. So identifying those areas that are, as we said before, looking for those areas that are sort of most tight for you, and then spending most of your time working on those areas. So, as far as things that lead to these sort of imbalances, there's sort of two main things. One is lifestyle. We all sit there in front of a computer, holding onto a mouse with our right hand and so forth. And that causes a lot of imbalances. So often people will be tight in the right shoulder, right neck, right arm area because they're always using a mouse.
Right.
Same as when you're driving, whether you realize it or not, most people will sit not exactly square on in the seat. They'll sort of get into a habit of twisting to one side, especially if they're using a manual car or a stick shift. They're using one side of their body more than the other. And over time, these sort of things lead to imbalances. The other area where people get imbalances from is just their sport. If they do play a sport where one side of the body is emphasized more than the other, these can lead to imbalances as well.
You certainly see it in tennis players with the massive forearm on one side. And but yeah, it's funny. When I wrote notes well, I would always write like this. And so I had plenty of motion going to the left, but I had trouble going to the right. I mean, consistently. So,
Yeah.
so when you have asymmetrical tightness like that, do you just stretch to the one side?
Yeah, I don't totally neglect the other side. So, you don't totally ignore the other side.
Sure.
But yeah, you put most of the emphasis on the area that is most tight.
Makes sense. So, this is a personal question. Do you have any tricks for increasing ankle mobility in a person for squats? It's actually for a friend of mine he's doing some squats and he's having trouble with his ankle mobility. I know the basic things, but I don't know if there's any tricks you have.
Yeah, look, my sort of go-to with any area of the body is heat, massage, and stretching. So I always come back to those three things. Get as much heat into the area as you possibly can. Massage the area and the muscle groups around the area, and then stretch. Long hold static stretching is best for permanently improving mobility and range of motion. So yeah, just lots of heat, lots of massage, get into that stretch position and just hold it for as long as you can.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time with the heat thing, and I was just amazed at myself that I never thought of that. But I mean, that can make such a difference to start with the heat, and then, I mean, you'll progress a lot quicker. So
huge difference. A lot of people, just sort of don't even think about it. But
right,
just its effect on getting blood flow into that area, warming that area up and getting it ready to stretch. It makes a huge difference.
So this is the last question I'm gonna have for this section. I just out of curiosity, I want to know what your own stretching routine is.
Yeah, look, I do most of my stretching in the evening before I go to bed. I do a little bit of stretching if I'm warming up and cooling down, but no sort of intense stretching during the warm up or cool down. No big long sessions of stretching as part of the warm up and cool down. A lot of just very gentle stretching for the warm up and cool down. Most of my stretching is done in the evening. I'll sit down at night, usually after all the chaos of the day has ended, and I can actually just sit down and relax. My wife and I will sort of sit down in front of the TV, watch a bit of sort of comedy or something lighthearted, and I'll just sit on the floor and stretch.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I'm very aware of my body throughout the day and while I'm training. I still do a fair bit of training. I still do triathlons. So I still sort of do maybe 12, 15 hours a week of training. So I'm very conscious of what I'm doing while I'm training. And, if I'm out on the bike, for example, and I feel like my hip's just a little bit tight or it's a little bit restricted, I'll take note of that, and that's what I'll work on that night. So I'll spend some time, get some heat into it, maybe use that great massage tool you sent me, the vibration tool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll sit there with that for 5 minutes, just working on the muscle groups around the hip.
Sure.
And then I'll do 15 or 20 minutes of stretching. So yeah, that's my routine, and I'll do that at least maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Don't always do it every night, but at least 4 or 5 times a week. And that really goes towards preventing injury. When you are training, whatever you can do to prevent injury and keep that sort of consistency of training going is really important. So I find that little, half an hour, a couple of times a week in the evening makes a huge difference to my ability to be able to continue to train, train the next day. And just the quality of my training is so much better as well. So it's those little things that make the difference.
And it doesn't hurt to help. I think it helps your sleep somewhat. I don't know if that's been proven, but it seems like it does.
It certainly helps me. I know that for sure. It's interesting. I used to work with a lot of professional athletes, and oftentimes I'd work with athletes who are transitioning from sort of amateur status to professional. And, most people think that when an athlete goes from amateur to professional, they, increase their training. And 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. What going professional means is that they get to spend more time on all those little things.
Right.
Their sort of base training doesn't really change that much, but they're able to sleep more. They're able to spend more time on their recovery. They're able to,
Eat right.
look after themselves, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So that's the sort of, the big change when someone goes, transitions into a professional professional athlete.
That's very interesting. So, well, Brad, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you taking another hour out of your day or the start of your day to join us and give us some great information. As always, you're welcome back to the program again if you got more information. If there's anything else we can do for you, please let us know.
Bob, I always enjoy talking with you. It's a great opportunity to discuss these sort of things. And I'm sure your viewers, and I know I sent my subscribers over to the last video we did, and I got a lot of positive comments from it. So hopefully people will get a lot out of this and, be able to keep training injury free.
Yep. Fantastic. Take care.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Bob.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.